To begin drawing with charcoal pencils, you first need to understand the difference in the charcoal pencils. I will be working with 2B and a 6B pencil, as well as a white charcoal pencil for highlights throughout the video. The B means that this lead is going to be way softer. You normally draw with an H pencil, and the H stands for hard. Okay. Also, they have numbers with it. The bigger the number, the softer the lead will be. So if you want to draw a shadow or a mark, but you don't want it to blend out too much, you're going to go with the lower number. So in that case, I'd be using my 2B pencil. However, if you want the opposite effect and you want to really be able to blend and smudge out your mark, you're going to use your 6B pencil. Some general rules when you are drawing with regular pencil, charcoal, or color pencil, either one. You kind of want to work from the top down to avoid smudges. I know in this video here I didn't really do that, but I was not placing my hand on there because I've trained myself not to place my hand on my paper. If you've done the same, you can do it whatever order you want, but I suggest you start by working top down. Or you can put like a plastic bag or something under your hand while you're working, so that way you're not moving around the graphite that you're putting down without doing it on purpose. You will notice I also have a blending stump in my hand, or also known as a tortillon. Sounds like tortilla. It's not though. You're going to make sure that you are not just relying on that blending stump, that you are using your different values by how much pressure you're applying. When you are using this 6B pencil, guys, this pencil is so extremely soft that like the barely touching your paper will make a pretty dark mark. So as I'm using it, I'm like, it's like, I don't know, lightly tickling the paper. It's so extremely soft. So that way I can control the values instead of getting something really dark all the time. You can always go back and add more value on top later, but it's a lot more difficult to remove that value. Ensure that you are looking at your value scale the whole time and you are working to get every single value, 1 through 10. You want the darkest part to be as dark as you can get your pencil. And with the charcoal, it's pretty fairly dark. And then you're going all the way to your lightest value, which in my case, it could have been my paper as the lightest value, but I chose to also add in white charcoal to get more of a highlight and use that paper as like a mid-tone between it. Either way, make sure you're using all 10 values no matter how you're doing your drawing. By this point in your art career, you should already realize this, that your drawing can only be good as your reference photo. So if you're not looking at your reference photo every 5 seconds, then it's not going to look like your picture. Okay. I'm not making a mark until I check my picture to see and make sure that it's going to be in the right spot as well as the right value and shade as well. Remember, don't just rely on your blending stump. You also need to be in control of your pencil and how much pressure you are using. So in class, you will obviously have access to your blending stump, especially for those really tiny details. But also remember that you can swap that out for a cotton swab, a tissue, or even your finger. If you notice throughout this video here, I will actually be kind of switching between using that blending stump as well as my finger. So I usually use my finger when I'm trying to do a big area and I want to blend it out quite a bit because your finger actually picks up more of that graphite than the blending stump does because that blending stump holds on to that graphite and keeps it pretty dark. Um, the blending stump should stay pretty sharp, so that way you can use those for small details while you are working on your portrait. Don't worry about trying to get your pencil marks to be like really smooth with a smooth texture on here. Mark making is actually makes for a more interesting picture. We just don't want to see like real stark lines unless that was the intended purpose based off of your reference photo. This does actually take more skill, um, but it makes your picture look a whole lot more realistic and gives it a really cool texture. Make sure that you're not only looking at all your really dark shadows, but you go back towards the end or when you finish a certain section and you're looking for those highlights. The shadows kind of push the picture back, but the highlights are what bring those specific parts forward, and that's how you get that illusion of a 3D picture or person. When it comes to those highlights, you have a couple different options. When working with charcoal on a colored paper like I am, you can use the white charcoal pencil. Or if you're just on a regular white piece of paper and using graphite or charcoal, you can use the white, the paper is your highlight. So places where you don't put any shading or value on it is the highlight. Or you can do what I just did, and I used a kneaded eraser to help pull out some of those highlights. I will also do that here on the hair because I want to pull out some more highlights without having to use the white charcoal pencil. That pulls too much of a highlight compared to the rest of my face highlights. My last tip to you right now is probably one of the most important ones. Make sure that when you are finished with your portrait, you no longer have any lines. No more lines are used in this. Those lines are turned into shadows. When you look at a person's face, they don't have lines. Those wrinkles are actually shadows. Okay, just don't have any outline marks left by the time you're done. Okay, in review, just a few reminders. Make sure you are avoiding smudges, either by drawing from the top down or you've got something under your hand. Ensure that you are using your value scale and you are getting all dark values from 10 all the way to your lightest one, either the color of the paper or some way to make a highlight. Um, you are not relying on your blending stump. You need to control the pressure of your pencil in order to get all those values. The blending stump is just a nice bonus. Make sure you're using your 2 different or 3 different types of pencils, that you are utilizing those for their intended purpose. Remember, the bigger the number gets, the softer that lead is. And then overall, your most important one is that by the time you're done, there are no more lines. They are all shadows or highlights that have been blended out. Oh, and one other thing, your reference photo. Remember, you are only as good as your reference photo, and if you're not using it, your picture is not going to work.